Hey, what's up everybody? Thanks for watching. It's me, Ben, with Maker Decor. Got a great video for today. We're gonna show you how we built this backdrop. Don't forget to like and subscribe and comment any questions you have below. And all right, let's get started on this build. I don't have a piece of string, but I just want to show you can make it out of anything. This is just a long tubing from some vinyl I had. It's like cardboard, almost like a toilet paper roll, just long. And so all I did is just dent it, put a screw, measured the distance I needed here, poked a hole through here with the screwdriver, and I'm literally just gonna put my pencil through like this and just have it pivot so it can create that curve that we need. Let me show you. We got all our measurements, everything lined out, and I'm gonna slide the plywood under and we're gonna cut it all out. All right, a very important step is to make sure we're gonna use 2 sheets of plywood and they have to line up. And to make sure of that, I'm gonna put the second sheet of plywood under this, so when I cut the corners and the edges and the round top and then slice it down the middle, it lines up. Both of them are gonna be measured the exact same. All right, we're lined up pretty good, so now I'm just gonna put some screws in the corner that I know I'm not gonna use those pieces, just to kind of keep it in place, and I'm gonna cut out the edge and then cut it in half. Now I'm gonna cut the bottom to make sure I have the right height. So just gonna find the center and reuse that same pipe again here, and this one, and this one. The measurements are in the plans below. Just gonna double check. We're good. I say let's just tack it in, see what happens. And let's lower that power down a little bit. A second person or a clamp? On this curve part, just because I really like the curve I'm getting, if I cut it off here, I still have more of a curve, and it's gonna give me like a weird shape like this. Instead of being nice and round, it's gonna box it out. So what I'm gonna do is just add another one of these right before here, just as a spacer for both of them. Hey, what's up everybody? Day 2 of the build. It was so hot, I just said, nah, I'm gonna take a little break and I'll do it tomorrow. So day 2, I also came into a little of an issue that I'm like, let me show them so when they build this, they don't run into the same thing. I traced the round edge and I wanted to place the one on top like this. So just like that. The issue is it lines up pretty close. I would say 80%. And I could kind of use my nail gun and kind of finesse it all together. That's not what I want to do. I want it to fit clean, and it's giving me less work to clean up later on. Earlier, yesterday when I had built it, we showed you where we traced out both and we cut out. But I now probably recommend, and what I should have done and what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna cut the inside out just like we had done before. Still trace that along, do that same thing, cut the inside out. Don't cut the outside. When you cut them both, don't cut the outside of this one and kind of save it, because usually when I'm working with this one, and I'll try to get the inside good, the inside set, and then the outside. So I'll try to fix the outside, pull it a little bit, the inside's off. I'm like, me, it's a little better if I'll do one. So I'll cut the inside and then I'll leave the outside, right? So when I place it on, I'm just gonna get a pencil and I can trace the outer side of this. So once I trace the outer side, I can just cut it and it'll actually fit perfect and flush, and I have to do less cleanup work later by like adding putty and everything like that. Definitely always just cut on the outside of the line. Gives you a little bit extra slack. If you have to kind of trim stuff off later, it's better than it's already trimmed too short and you're like, I gotta redo it. Gotta waste a whole nother half sheet of plywood. So don't do what I did, do what I do. Let's get started. So I cut on the outside of the line, which is good, covered everything. There's a little trim, maybe just on that side, but everything else looks pretty flush. I was like, why is this way off? And then I realized, I forgot I had flipped it over to kind of cut it, but I flipped it back. Now we're good, we fit. I'm gonna make sure it doesn't move, and then I'm gonna trace around the back and the bottom. I don't know if you can see that, but I'm just gonna cut out that line right there. So here's the line we're gonna start to cut, going around. Make sure you cut on the outside of that line, just in case we're a little off. We can also kind of take a little bit more, but if you cut too short, you're gonna do what I did the first time and you're gonna have to redo it. So cut on the outside, make sure it fits a little bit better. So it's not perfect, but you can see I stayed on this side of the line. Here's the line, it's still there. And anything I can clean up later with either a sander, and if it's big enough I can just use a jigsaw. But it's better to have leftover than cut it too short and ruin the piece. It kind of bumps out just a tiny bit around the corner on the left side, but I'm actually gonna tack it in place and then just kind of go around with my jigsaw just so I don't ruin it. I don't want to end up cutting it too short, but we're pretty lined up, most of it, so which is really good. And just kind of clean up a little bit with my jigsaw and maybe the sander to kind of round it over, just so you don't see any of it. With the outside on, it kind of glides the blade around, cuts nice and smooth around it. Definitely having these little borders on helps with the round cut, because it makes sure I don't cut too short. I'm still kind of keeping an eye on where the blade goes, but definitely helps out trimming out the edges once I have this on there. Alright, to make sure I add some strength, I am going to add the screws. So I used the brad nails from underneath, but I'm going to add some screws just to kind of give it a little bit of extra strength. But to do that, you definitely need to pre-drill, because when I was doing it earlier, man, I had like 2 of those split on me. I re-drilled them, but I can see that becoming a problem. So pre-drill. It's a lot easier if you have a brad nail gun, because I kind of brad nailed it first and then pre-drilled. So I'm going to pre-drill, so it's right there. All I'm going to do is just do it through here. Make sure I lined up with this one. That was on. There we go. I'm not worried about making it. If I miss and get a little extra hole, I'll just redo it, because you're not really going to see this. All this is going to be covered. It's going to be that extra outer side. So I missed on the second one, but I just knew I had to go down a little bit, re-drilled. And so now all I'm going to do is a little extra strength. There we go. Now I'm going to do this just to the rest of them. Alright, as you can see, I finished nailing on both sides. Got the sides on. Now we're just going to attach the top. So these are the ones I previously cut earlier. I want them to overlap this. The reason is it'll be less work. Alright, we're lined up. Oh man, this is coming together nicely. Alright. Alright, definitely love the way this came out. I sanded a little bit on the edge just to make sure they're lined up pretty well. Once I fill in the wood filler, throw some paint, this one's gonna look smooth. The other side, a little bit of a story. I think I figured out what I did wrong. The other one didn't line up, but this one did. Perfect. Wood filler, paint, boom. So if you can see, we got a little bit of a gap, less than a 1/4 inch gap here. On this one, I can see on the side, I did not bring this one all the way down. It happened to be when I was 1/2 inch boards for the border. I should have used my 90s angle ends just to make sure they were exactly 90. But this one, when I put that board, I had it up at an angle a little bit, and I can see it in the back, and that kind of threw everything off. So it gave me this gap in the front, but we can fix it. And then it's kind of good that this happened, just in case this happened to you when you're building. Let me show you how I'm gonna fix it, and how you can too. I don't know if you can see it right there. For this one, you can see how that wood is a little longer. I should have brought this lower, so this top one should have been longer to line up with that. That would have covered this whole gap, but that's all right. Let's go ahead and get that fixed up right now. So you can just put something heavy on it and then let it dry. I'm just gonna make sure I shoot some nails that go pretty far deep into it. So this is actually a little higher than what I need, and that's what I wanted. I'm gonna sand it down lightly all along. Make sure not to do it too much, and I'm not touching the edge because I made sure to cut the edge smooth so it'll line up. I'm just gonna sand this completely down flat. It's not a lot, just very little. So I know on camera it looks like a gap, but it's this brown spot. So I actually put it on. I sanded it. It took me about 3 tries. So I sanded it just a little bit, as much as I could, just a little bit. I tried it on to see how the fit was. I still needed to take more off, so I did it again, and then did it one more time. So it took 3 times to really get it what it looks like. I'm gonna show you right now, but you see how this brown spot right here that covers it? It actually covers this gap. It goes thinner here, thicker here, and thinner in the back. This corner was the one that gave me the most trouble, so that's why it looks here. But once I fill this in with putty and then we paint the whole thing, it's gonna look like it matches exactly. But let me show you what this actually sanded part looks like. Let's see if you can see. So right here I sanded it. So a lot of my sanding time was actually towards the center. I want to take a lot of this off because it was the edges that were giving me the most trouble. So this is flush actually with this little spot. You see how my sander was sitting right here, and I was slowly coming up on this edge, and the same thing. And I took off a lot back here. It's very thin over here, very thin, and then over here it's thicker, and then again it's thinner over here. So you can probably, I don't know if you can see that, it's very thin over here, and it gets thicker towards that edge. So this is an easy way to do it. If you can just put glue, put some weights on something. If you do have brad nails, make sure you should put it most of the way through. And then I just sanded this down. I actually used 80 grit on that palm sander, and it was actually pretty easy to take a lot of this off. And then so I made sure not to take it off all at once. And then slowly I put it on, checked it, put it on, checked it, and then finally I was like, oh, that's it. And then so now I'm just gonna fill this in with wood filler. And so when I put it together, it's gonna look clean. Alright, so if you have that issue, I'm glad I was able to kind of fix this and show you how to do it. But really you can use anything. This was just some board I used, put it on there, and then you're just slowly sanding it until it kind of builds up the rest of this. To me, that's just the easiest way to do it. Instead, you could unscrew and take all this off and kind of realign it, but I used wood glue and everything, so it's going to be a pain. So just adding this kind of helped out, but up to you. So with this, while I'm waiting for the wood putty to dry, the plastic wood, I'm gonna put there's some spots here, right here, and up here where there's a little gap. Those boards that I had cut, the square boards that I put going between here, I didn't exactly check them before I put them in there. I just cut and put them on. It was pretty hot, but I was just in a rush. So it created, this one was just a little longer, so it kind of bumped out the front a little bit, and this one's a little longer. So double check before you make yours. But anyways, it just created a little gap that I got right here, and a little gap at the top. You can't put wood filler on this because this part of the stuff is actually very flexible. So if you put wood filler in here, it's just gonna crack and fall off. For this, I hate to use it, but you just put some silicone that covers up. Though you don't use a lot, just kind of put enough to fill in the hole, and you can use like a wet rag to kind of, or a damp rag to kind of clean it up and make it look clean. That's what I'm gonna do here. Just add a little bit of silicone. Make sure you get the kind that's paintable. Silicone is not paintable, so here we go. But if not, just make sure your cuts are accurate before you put them in. I didn't, and you won't have to use this, but just in case it happens, silicone. Alright, thanks for watching this build. Hopefully this was helpful for you, to give you some tips or tricks that you can do. If you have any questions, let me know down below, and I'll catch you on the next one. I did want to mention, for this build, there's going to be 2 different ways I'm going to have the plans. So you can have it as a whole thing, so without this line here, it'll just be one whole section, which looks the smoothest and the cleanest. and probably a lot easier to build. But transport, you're gonna need at least a truck or a longer van. If transportation is difficult for you and you know you're gonna have to make 2 pieces, you will have this line, which it is visible, but there's not really a way around it. Really, if I recommended, 1 piece looks a lot smoother. I hate that line, but I understand some people, all you have is maybe like a minivan and that's all you're gonna have, or something, and transportation is just not something, you don't wanna rent some big old U-Haul all the time, or you don't have access to someone with like a truck bed or something like that. So definitely this option is workable. So definitely this option is something that you can look at. Both will be in the plans. You can have it half, or you can have it built as a full.